Here's a warning for property investors about using sourcing agents to find your investment property. First of all, very quickly, what is a sourcing agent? Well, a sourcing agent is not an estate agent. A sourcing agent will specifically go and find investment properties and then offer them to investors. Now, they're not estate agents because they don't go around taking photos and advertising listings all over Rightmove and Zoopla and doing those sorts of activities. Sourcing agents specifically go and find off-market, buy-to-lets, flips, HMO opportunities, all those types of property investments, and then offer them normally off-market to investors that want to find the really good opportunities to invest in property. And quite often you get those properties that are good opportunities for buying it at a lower price. Maybe you might have an opportunity to refurbish it or add the value, increase the value, so that you are investing properly. Now, quite often you'll find sourcing agents that go and get just straight buy-to-let properties that are below market value. But overall, the summary of a sourcing agent is an agent that will go and find investment properties specifically for property investors. So why am I saying here's a warning about working with sourcing agents? Well, as you probably know, if you've listened to my podcast or you've watched my YouTube videos, then I work with a couple of very good sourcing agents. And this is for myself. This is for my own property investing, as well as a select few clients that I've introduced to some very good sourcing agents. Now, the reason I work with those sourcing agents is because they focus on the property. They focus on being more like professional buyers, and they're trying to buy a investment property for me rather than going to find a property and trying to sell it to me. And that is the key here. You get some sourcing agents, and I think these are the good ones, that are going to buy a property for you. And you get other sourcing agents that will find a property and then try and sell it to you. And those are the ones I think you have to be very, very careful with. And there's another part to it. So if the first part is to try and identify the sourcing agents that are trying to buy a property for you, the second part is to try and find sourcing agents that focus on the property and not on trying to give you financial or investment advice. And that is another really important point to take notice of. It's worth mentioning that unless they are formally qualified, then sourcing agents are not financial advisors. They're not investment advisors. They're not mortgage advisors. So they're not qualified to give you mortgage or investment or financial advice. And that is really critical to know, because there are so many sourcing agents that give financial advice, that give mortgage advice and give investment advice without realizing they're doing it, and also without the qualifications, without the accreditations, licenses, or permissions to do so. It's actually quite a serious thing. And the sourcing agents probably, in a lot of cases, don't realize they're doing it. So why am I telling you all this? Well, first of all, I do want everybody that wants to invest in property, I want every single one of you to get a good property investment that achieves your goals. Most people will invest in property for the long term. They want to achieve maybe some cash flow, but also grow the value of the property over time. Most people are investing for their children's futures, for their family's futures, maybe as a pension for the future. Here that I'm saying the word future over and over again. That's what most people invest in property for. Now, the problem with looking at properties that sourcing agents bring to you is if they're giving financial advice and they're not qualified to, they might be painting a picture of a different future than what would actually become reality. And if you speak to actual financial advisors, then quite often they might disagree with a lot of the advice that sourcing agents give you, or certainly they will pick holes in it because the due diligence hasn't been done, there's not been enough attention to detail, and this is a pretty serious thing. So those 2 points that I've just made to you about working with a sourcing agent, and the third point is going to be about how to find a good sourcing agent and your own due diligence on that. I'll come to that in a second. But those 2 points, Number one, your sourcing agent cannot give you financial advice, cannot give you mortgage advice, cannot give you investment advice. Even if they're telling you that they've got loads of properties themselves, they've been investing for years, they've got tons and tons of experience, and they've got tons and tons of happy clients, loads of testimonials and good reviews, that may well be. And I'm not discrediting that experience, that knowledge, and that journey they've all been on. I'm not discrediting that at all. I'm just saying that there's a massive difference, huge difference between a qualified financial advisor and somebody who has just done well with their own property investing. A massive difference. So do remember that. But also the other point is that a good sourcing agent focuses on buying a property for you, not selling you a deal. And that is a real key point. So if at any point you feel like the sourcing agent is pushing you towards a property, or there's something not quite right with this property, and I'll give you a quick story in a minute about that exact scenario of a sourcing agent selling me a property rather than going and buying me one. If you feel that you're being pushed and sold to, then you probably are. And there's a reason why this apparent property investment needs to be sold to you rather than it just being a good property investment. So the third point, before I give you this story, if I remember to give you this story, that is, but the third point is, how do you find a good sourcing agent and what due diligence should you do on the properties they offer you? Well, the two go hand in hand. There are tons of sourcing agents out there if you know where to look. You can look on Facebook, you can find property groups where sourcing agents are talking about properties, offering properties, and so on. Now, for me, the good sourcing agents are the ones that don't sell a deal. Back to my first point. The good sourcing agents are the ones that present the property itself and the actual facts of the property. For an example, the purchase price, the rent value, if it's currently rented or not rented, the facts, and those types of pieces of information. So therefore, your job as the property investor, if you find a good sourcing agent that's offered you a property and the numbers look good to you, then do your due diligence. Again, the other parts that a good sourcing agent will do, they'll give you the purchase price, they'll give you the rent valuation, they'll give you comparison evidence of why that's the purchase price and why that's a good purchase price and why that's the rent valuation. And I use the word evidence specifically because there's so many sourcing agents that will just put their finger in the air and say, I reckon that's about 150,000. I reckon that rents out for about 700 a month. I reckon this is about 10% below market value. There's no actual evidence to support it, or the evidence is very weak. And the evidence might be, well, this 3-bedroomed terraced house that you can buy for £200,000. There was a 4-bedroom detached house down the road which sold for 250,000. So that must mean that your 3-bed terraced house is going to be worth 200. It doesn't work like that. Different markets, different types of buyers, different mortgage restrictions, and so on and so on. So the evidence has to be strong to support that purchase price. And it's the same with the rent valuation. Again, you can't just stick your finger in the air and think, yeah, it's probably about 700 per month rent. Yeah, it's probably about 900 a month rent. Yeah, it's probably £1,000 a month. Probably. But where's the evidence? It's all there, easy to see. Just go onto Rightmove and see all the properties that are on the market in the local area, similar to yours, and see which ones are let agreed and which ones are still on the market. If they're still on the market, that means it hasn't been let. And that means either no one wants it at that price, or it's only just gone to market, or there's something wrong with it. So you do your own due diligence on that. Don't just take a sourcing agent's word for it, and identify the good sourcing agents as the ones that will give you purchase price, rent valuation, comparison evidence, and will not say this has potential for this and this and this. If they're going to offer you a property that you can refurbish and improve and increase the value, then again there has to be comparison evidence to show you why that house you're buying for 100,000 is going to be worth 150,000 once you've done a refurb on it. Has to be comparison evidence. If there's no comparison evidence, you're being sold to. Someone wants to make money out of you buying that property. And I just want to, before I give you that story about a sourcing agent that did this to me, I want to tell you about the bigger part of property investing. Now, most sourcing agents think, incorrectly might I add, that most property investors want big refurb jobs. They want properties that they can convert into HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy, or properties they can buy a big house and convert it into 2 flats. They all sound really exciting, but actually, I would argue that 80% of property investors, the bigger part of that market, want good buy-to-let properties. They want buy-to-let properties that are profitable, reliable, easy, simple and safe. And by the way, property investors sounds like you're some sort of experienced expert in property investing. No, a property investor is anybody who invests in property. It doesn't matter what property you invest in, a property investor is that. It also doesn't even matter if you are invested in property, meaning perhaps you inherited a property and you've decided to keep it and rent it out, or perhaps you've moved out of one house and you've decided to keep it and rent it out, or perhaps you've met someone, you've married and you've both got a house, you've moved out of one into your partner's house and then kept the one that you've moved out of and rented it out. If you are invested in property in any way, then you are a property investor. So most property investors want a good buy-to-let property that is profitable, reliable, easy, simple, safe. In fact, I would argue that most property investors don't want to get involved in big, complicated, risky refurbishments. Now, I do. I like those property investments because I'm experienced in it and I've done it many times and I know what they're about and I know what can go wrong and I know what the risks are. Generally, actually, nobody knows what all the risks are, but I'm happy to do those properties. But I'm also really happy. In fact, I prefer just a really good buy-to-let property. If I can get a similar return from a good buy-to-let property, similar to a good refurbishment property, I'll always take the buy-to-let because it's done, it's ready to go, it's lower risk. I'll even make a couple of percent less yield on a good buy-to-let property that's ready to go because there's less risk. So for me, I'm just looking for somewhere good, profitable, reliable, easy, simple, safe to put my money. So bringing it back to sourcing agents. If you speak to a sourcing agent and they say, what type of property are you looking for? Don't be worried about saying, I want a buy-to-let property, please, just one that's ready to go. Don't be worried about saying that because that is probably what most of the people in the country want, me included. If I can get a good buy-to-let below market value, fantastic. That's what I want. Now, obviously, yes, there are more adventurous ways to invest your money. I'm not saying that you can't do serviced accommodation, short-term letting, or HMO properties, or student properties, or conversions, or build extensions, or things like that. I'm not saying you can't do that. They are very exciting property investments. They are very profitable if you get them right. I'm just saying that most people want a good buy-to-let. I call them press properties. Press standing for profitable, reliable, easy, simple, safe. So ask your sourcing agent to find you a below market value BMV buy-to-let property that you can invest in. And lastly, I promised you this story and I made a mistake with this property. In fact, if you go over to my YouTube channel now and hit subscribe, then I'm going to go into much more detail about this story because I've probably lost about 20 to 25,000 on this one property because I went with the sourcing agent. I didn't do my own due diligence. I didn't get it right. And I lost about 20 to 25 grand on it. Now, I should be really annoyed about that, but I'm actually quite happy about it. I'm taking the positives from it because I've learned something from that, which is worth way more than 20 or 25 grand. And in a nutshell, I bought a house entirely based on the sourcing agent's selling of that property. Them giving me information and selling it to me. Can't miss this opportunity. Anybody will buy this. This is going to go so fast. I'm giving you this one chance to buy it. And I went for it, lost a lot of money, and I'm still in that story, by the way. So if you go over to my YouTube channel now, then I'm going to record the full story of that property investment, including all the numbers, why I bought the property in the first place, how it was presented to me, what went wrong, how I've lost a load of money on it, and what I learned from it. There's some really good information coming in that video, which is going to, I think, help a lot of property investors avoid the same mistakes that I've made. And that's the first time I've ever lost money on a property. So look, I can't complain because this is investing. If you invest in 10 properties, the chances are 1 or 2 of them are going to go wrong. But your goal is to make more money on the other 8 or 9 than you lose on the 1 or 2. And that's investing. If you can make more money than you lose, then you've won. Same as gambling, really, isn't it? Make more money than you lose. That's gambling. That's successful. So I will do that. Head over to the YouTube channel and do that. Or look, I don't mind connecting you by email to my sourcing agents At the moment, I'm focusing on Portsmouth and surrounding, which is my area. There's some really good properties coming up in Portsmouth at the moment, really good. And again, both. I've got two teams down here that are operating, first of all, press properties, so good buy-to-let properties. So if you are looking for a good buy-to-let property, let me know about that and I'll connect you with that sourcing agent. And I also have a really good sourcing agent that I work with on off-market, below market value, sometimes refurbs, sometimes ready to go, sometimes HMOs, sometimes conversions, sometimes student properties. It's a different type of sourcing agent that gets the real off-market investment opportunity. So if you're looking for a straight buy-to-let, which is profitable, reliable, easy, simple, safe, then contact me about that. If you're looking for a refurbishment, a flip, something you can buy lower than market value, and then increase the value, maybe refinance it, get your money back out. You know, the old BRR, buy, refurbish, refinance. You can do that. I will just connect you up by email. I don't want anything for it. I just want to make sure that everybody's working with sourcing agents that I know. Now, again, look, still back to the original point. Can't give financial advice, can't give mortgage advice, can't give investment advice, not qualified. I'm not qualified. The sourcing agents are not qualified unless they are. But you've got to check that. You've got to ask the question. And if they try to give you financial advice, mortgage advice, investment advice, chuck it all aside, just ignore it, focus on the facts for sure, definitely. So let me know. I'm also concentrating on the Northeast. I have been for a few years now. Do you remember a few years ago when I started investing in the Northeast myself and for some of my clients as well? And I was telling you, this is going to be a boom area. You've got to start investing in the Northeast. Well, it is. And my properties have shot up in value. I'm really happy with the investments that I made. Like I said just now, I got one wrong, which I'm going to do the YouTube video going into much more detail about that, but only if you subscribe. If you don't subscribe to my YouTube channel, you won't know when I've made it. But the Northeast, again, I've got two really good sourcing agents up in the Northeast that I'm happy to connect you with. Again, I don't want anything for it. You just get the right properties for you. I also have a really good sourcing agent in the Midlands, around just outside the Birmingham area. Again, I think, but outside of Birmingham is going to be a real growth point over the next few years. Happy to explain why. Again, I'll do that in another video, perhaps not for this one. Also, parts of the Northwest, certain parts of the Northwest that I think are right now, you can get unbelievable houses that rent out for unbelievable amounts in comparison to the value that you're buying it for. So give you an example, there was one that I looked at the other day which was 72 grand, and it rents out for 750 a month. What? That's madness. And look, we're not talking numbers that are lighting the world on fire, but back to my original point, this is a buy-to-let property. It's a good purchase price. It rents out for a good amount of money. It's got a high demand area. And for me, that's a really good buy-to-let property. It's all ready to go. You don't have to do anything to it. It's done. So you just buy it, rent it out. There it is. And then you sit back and enjoy the money coming in, enjoy the growth of the value, hopefully, and move on to the next. Buy-to-let is, I would call it, if you're looking at buy-to-let versus, I don't know, HMO, then I would see buy-to-let as the lower risk, profitable, reliable, easy, simple, safe investment. That's what I would see it as. Let me know what you think about that. Do you prefer buy-to-lets, or do you prefer HMOs? Or do you prefer student accommodation? Do you prefer serviced accommodation or short-term letting? Do you prefer to do flips? Do you prefer to do conversions, extensions, big refurbs, or are you a little bit put off by refurbs? What do you think? What type of thing do you prefer? Let me know. Just comment below. I'd be really interested to know what people prefer. I think, in fact, I would claim that most people like a good buy-to-let property. And I also think that if you've got people that are saying that buy-to-let properties are dead, then the chances are they've probably got a training course to sell you about different types of property investments. Perhaps they're a HMO specialist, service accommodation specialist, maybe they're a sourcing agent, I don't know. Anyway, look, I've waffled on for 23 minutes now, so hopefully all of this makes sense. My main points are, watch out. There are good sourcing agents and there are bad sourcing agents. There are experienced sourcing agents and there are inexperienced sourcing agents. Now, because there are so many sourcing agent training courses available, and I'm not discrediting them, by the way, some of them are very good, but what's happening is people are seeing an easy way to make some money through sourcing. So they're going to a training course, doing a training course, and then trying to do sourcing. Well, sourcing is something that you have to know because you're playing with other people's money here. And if you don't take it seriously, and if you're not an experienced sourcing agent, estate agent, property investor, then I feel like you're not doing the buyers the right service. So check out your sourcing agent, make sure they've got the right accreditations, the right insurances, the right permissions, the right licenses to source properties. If you need any kind of help or advice, I will absolutely help anyone I can for totally free, either by giving you some resources, pointing you in the right direction, or connecting you up with the right people. I will do all of that for free. You can contact me through tom@soanegroup.co.uk, or comment below, or message me through my Facebook page, or one way or another, contact me.